Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters for Anfield Index. It's been a good week so far, hasn't it, ladies and gents? The Reds keep 5 clean sheets in a row in the Champions League. They go 6 for 6. They are top of every single group you could name. Everyone's happy, it seems, apart from them talking about. And here to tuck into Girona, Fulham coming up, and all other stories as ever is the renowned and the respected David Lynch. David, we've got to be happy, even if Arne Slot is, haven't we, right now?
Yeah, I just think because for the reasons you said, the big picture just looks absolutely incredible at the moment, doesn't it? And, to be 6 wins from 6 in the Champions League, having only, you say 5 clean sheets, they have conceded only once, and that was in the 3rd minute of the first game. So absolutely crazy run that they're on. And so, yeah, pretty much already through to the next stages in the top 8. I mean, it'd be absolutely amazing if 18 points isn't enough to do it, though I suspect they'll pick up more points anyway. But and so that is a perfect situation to be in, because it obviously renders the kind of the last 2 group games, there's not an awful lot riding on them for Liverpool, and then obviously they've avoided the playoffs. So absolutely happy days, really. And just a shame Arne Slot wasn't as buzzing about it as I suppose that we are.
Very, very true. And just in case anyone is thinking, what are you talking about? Let's just have a little listen to what Arne Slot said straight afterwards in his press conference after the Girona game.
If you ask me about all the 6 games, I'm really pleased with all the results. I'm really pleased with the 5 games, the way we played. I'm far from pleased about the performance tonight. A lot, but especially 2 things. If you play against a team that has such a good idea about football, knows how to bring the ball out from the back, like some other teams we faced recently, like City or Real Madrid, then you need to be so intense if you want to make it difficult for them. But if you're every time waiting a few seconds before you press, and if you do press, you are so easily outplayed, then this team can cause you a lot of problems. And that's what they showed during the whole Champions League campaign, except for PSV Eindhoven away. So I almost feel sorry for them, because they deserved so much more in this Champions League campaign than the 3 points they have till now. But we have an incredible goalkeeper. The other part was that every time we lost the ball, we were not aggressive enough. So every time we lost the ball, they could just almost every time go all the way to our goal, having a shot or a blocked shot, and then we could attack again. So hardly any control at all over the game. Maybe the second half was a bit better, but then I'm trying to be positive.
And he's probably not doing the best job of being too positive there, realistically, as well. I mean, it was interesting. I always wonder if he's kind of going, David, from if I'm going to have a go at my team and kind of prompt them a little bit now when we're doing so well and we're winning all these games, now's the time. The comments in the cold light of day, do you think that is a fair assessment of the performance, or maybe designed to just nudge players to focus? What would you say about that?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both in that, as you say, it's not a bad time to nudge them when you've just won, and it's kind of not hammering your players after they've had a defeat where they probably need picking up. Yeah. So it is a useful time. And I do think he's kind of probably a little bit worried, one eye on the Fulham game that's coming up. There was maybe a lack of control against Newcastle as well, and that the game was defined by that slightly. So to do that back-to-back, he's kind of probably concerned that, if we come up against a side who can defend well and are really good on the counter, then we're going to get hurt. So I think that was probably part of his motivation behind it. But I do think he's maybe being a little bit harsh. I didn't think the first half was fantastic, but I thought the second, particularly after the goal, which Liverpool getting maybe fortuitous circumstances, but particularly after that, I thought they were very, very controlled. I mean, Girona only have 2 shots after the goal goes in. And the 0.03 and 0.07 expected goals, both from outside the box, both blocked. So, and that's a team that's chasing the game desperately. So I think they were very, very good to control it after they'd gone 1-0 up. And I understand why he's not happy with certain elements, as I say. And, I guess you've got to kind of spread that message to the players and make sure it doesn't happen again. but also, they've come through a tough game there and won it anyway. And there are a lot of positives to hold on to as well. I just think maybe he couldn't see them in that moment. And I guess his priority is to make sure that the performance level is upped, because ultimately that's the thing that keeps you winning games, isn't it? If you perform consistently at a high level, you tend to win an awful lot of games. It's no guarantee you win all the games, but it's certainly better than not performing well. So I guess that was why it was such a big worry for him.
Yeah, interesting, and maybe a bit harsh. And I do want to take you to the penalty. Is it one of those that, given in the Champions League, not a chance in the Premier League for you?
I think they might have given it in the Premier League just because his boot comes off, and that's such a that adds something to the act almost, doesn't it? It's kind of soft, and you feel a bit fortunate to get it, and you're definitely a bit annoyed if it goes against you. But I do think the fact he catches him hard enough to take his boot off is probably a decisive factor in it, really. So one of those that I don't think was even an attempt to foul or even massive clumsiness there. It's just one of those that's gone in Liverpool's favour. But at the end of the day, you have to put it away. And as I say, I thought after that, massively upped it in terms of the control of the game and saw it out pretty easily, really. So that for me is the real upside of the game. And if you get a bit of luck along the way, the good sides make the most of that. And Liverpool certainly did that.
Yeah, there's definitely a positive there. And interestingly, Andy Robertson got the sponsors man of the match. Alisson Becker got LFC TV's man of the match. Who did you plump for in this one?
Yeah, I thought Robertson was good, by the way, and I think his kind of form and his improvement he's shown recently has gone under the radar a little bit. I mean, I think he had a poor start to the season, really, and maybe it was all about that pre-season, but we were a little bit worried that maybe he's just gone a bit too far over the hill. And don't get me wrong, I think left-back's an area that Liverpool do need to address eventually. But I think all the kind of suggestions that he's completely done and can't help Liverpool this season were a little bit wider than the mark. So I thought he was quite good, actually. But for me, man of the match probably was Alisson. I think, in that first half in particular, I think he makes 5 saves. I think he just, his handling's superb when Liverpool are under pressure. His throwing, his kicking, absolutely spot on. So just to get him back is undoubtedly, even as good as Kelleher has been, it's just a boost to have him there. And there'll be, I think a lot of the saves he made in this game, you would expect him to, but they have to be made. And there's a couple where he really shows his class. So the fact is there's going to be some saves from him between now and the end of the season that he shouldn't be getting anywhere near. And that's the beauty of Alisson. He's that kind of level. So, for me, he was probably the man of the match.
Is it fair to say, because I know there was almost some people going for, Alisson's got to earn his way back into the team. Is the Alisson Kelleher debate just a case of levels, as in Kelleher's proven he's a brilliant goalkeeper and would be the starter for so many in the world. But in simple terms, when we talk world, we're talking Alisson's the best. There's just a gap there, literally.
Yeah, it's just no debate for me. I mean, the fact that was even being suggested, I think people just too quickly forget how good a player is. We saw it with Trent. He was out injured for a while, and it was like, oh, we don't need him. He can go to Real Madrid, and then he comes back and just shows you just how good he is. And it's similar with Alisson. It's not doing Quiveen Kelleher down. For me, he's a Champions League level goalkeeper. There isn't any question about that. But you don't put him in your team when you've got the best goalkeeper in the world behind him. And as soon as he come back, he shows straight away what he's all about, really. It's just, some of the saves he makes against Girona. I mean, I said there, some of them you would expect him to make most of them. But he makes some of them look so routine because his footwork is just outrageous and he fills so much of the goal. He's just there's not a keeper who's anywhere near him in terms of level. And I know Edison's been compared to him sometimes, but I think you're seeing now that City, when they actually concede shots ever, he's terrible at that aspect of the game. Maybe terrible is going too far, but he's not a world-class keeper in that aspect. He's just insane with the ball at his feet. So for me, Alisson's on a different level to everyone, really, and really, really good to have him back. It just makes Liverpool a lot more secure. And, the idea under this manager is to not give too many shots away, but sometimes you are going to, and you need a keeper of this class to keep them out. And thank goodness he's back.
Yeah, definitely earned his wages on this night. And another positive, we should say, it's there on the ticket. Ryan Gravenberch, because he did look leggy a little bit against Newcastle, and that's understandable because he's played every single minute of the Champions League and the Premier League up till he was taken off in that game. Felt like he was back almost again, wasn't it? He was class in this one, Ryan Gravenberch.
Yeah, as you say, totally understandable that he was showing some signs of fatigue. Liverpool have heavily lent on him in this period of the season up to now. So, absolutely got kind of mitigating circumstances around that. But obviously, it was just a bit of legs and not kind of a form issue or anything like that. You could see why the manager wanted to get him off against Newcastle. Then he gets that bonus of a weekend break, and then it's no coincidence he comes back in and he's controlling that midfield. I thought he was a massive part of Liverpool just kind of choking Girona out of the game in the second half. He was absolutely magnificent. So yeah, again, it's really, really good to be able to have him back to his best. And the good thing is as well, I think, is there's a few kind of midweeks coming up where there are opportunities to not drive him into the ground. Yeah. Let's see a bit of Endo and Morton against Southampton in the League Cup. The next two Champions League games that are coming up in January, there's opportunities to rotate there. You don't need to hammer Ryan Gravenberch. You've got to pick and choose some of them. But, FA Cup game's another one as well, sorry, that I didn't mention. You can pick and choose some where you might need to put him in to just keep him in rhythm. These players are used to playing twice a week, so I don't think it's going to, bringing him down to once a week completely is probably going to be a problem. So I do think he'll feature in some, but just having that option is absolutely fantastic, really. You can kind of dip him in and out. And I think avoid a situation like Newcastle where he was clearly kind of showing a bit of fatigue and that affected his performance. So I think that's good news, really.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant again in this one. And I mean, we've had the positives, we've had the clean sheet, we've had Alisson, we've talked Gravenberch. We do have to talk Darwin Nunez. And there's a couple of things to this. I know you'll have seen it on the various social media sites, platforms, etc. The sad element is, as we're seeing, some people are unfortunately abusing him, partner. I mean, if you're doing that, you're an absolute moron to start with. And there's that quote there from his Twitter saying, "They are not all, they are some." Absolutely. Thank you, Reds, for your support. We are all still together. So that is obviously idiotic if people are doing that. But that being said, it is okay to analyse Darwin Nunez. And he really wasn't good in this one either, was he?
No, as you say, on the abuse stuff, I've never kind of got my head around that sort of stuff. Does it really make people feel any better to leave rude comments on social media? The players more than anything want to play well, and they want to score goals, and they want to do well for the teams, and they work hard at it. So the idea that putting a comment's going to help you out or make you feel better is just pathetic, really. So I've never understood that, but as you say, we can also have that kind of cold-headed analysis of Nunez, and the fact is, I think it's not working out, is it? I ultimately, for me, and it has for a while for me, you're kind of reluctant to say this sometimes because there's been such a kind of groundswell of support for him, and I understand in the ground why people support him, but I don't think we all need to pretend in debates that this is the level that Liverpool hoped for or is kind of good enough, and it just isn't. Ultimately, this is a player who isn't of the level, and that's not to say sometimes he can't touch that level. He definitely does. We've seen it from time to time, but that's what separates the great players and the good players is the ones who can do it consistently. And he just doesn't have that, and that's fine, by the way. I mean, he's a phenomenal footballer who's going to have a great career. No question about that, but it won't be at Liverpool, and it probably won't be at Liverpool's level. And as I say, that's absolutely fine. We've seen enough evidence of that now. When he gets high shot volume, as he did under Jurgen Klopp, and that was one of his major selling points, he's too erratic in his finishing to make that count. And then when he gets less shot volume under Arne Slot and you want him to be involved in build-up, he's done some really good work in that in the past few weeks, but he's still capable of kind of dropping a stinker like at Girona, where it's completes 4 out of 8 passes, which is back to what he did against Bologna, where he was so poor. I thought he was poor against Newcastle as well. And then also you throw in, when he does get the rare opportunities, when he's in that position, he doesn't put them away. So it's, I just think that debate is fully settled now. And I'm in a mindset now where I expect him to be sold at the end of the season, to be honest, because he wasn't, I don't think the recruitment staff, or certainly this recruitment staff that's been put together now, are necessarily massive fans of what he brings and think it's a good fit. So I think they will be looking elsewhere at the end of the season. And I think it's also worth noting, by the way, I don't think Jota's a perfect fit for this either, in that centre forward role. I think he's a little bit messy in build-up, But the key difference is he's probably a touch tidier than Nunez, and he works just as hard. He's as good at pressing, really, really good in that aspect, which Nunez, by the way, is one of his upsides. He works his socks off. But the difference is if Jota is only going to get 2 shots a game and he's going to get those 2 chances that Nunez gets in Girona, he probably puts one of them away. And that's the difference. That's what puts him on a higher level to Nunez. And I still think if Nunez does leave at the end of the season, which is what I kind of expect, I think that Liverpool will have to go into a market for a number 9 that is better suited to the current needs. But in terms of who would be the backup or who would rotate with that person, Jota just for me is on a different level to Nunez, and that's not really a debate. So I think that's kind of where we are. And I think, just to kind of sum this up as well, this is not to say, by the way, that he's not going to play games between now and the end of the season. He has got a massive role to play as a rotational option, as someone who can come off the bench and get you a goal. I'm sure he's going to have a big say in this title race in the Champions League run, and he has to. The key now is for Slot to get as much of a tune out of him as he can, and we see more of those performances we've seen in the few weeks building up to this real dip where, yes, he's not going to be prolific, but he's a bit tidier in build up and he helps you out. So just hope he can do a lot of that between now and the end of the season, and we're not kind of, hopefully Jota can stay fit and that takes the pressure off what Nunez needs to provide, and he can do enough to help Liverpool win trophies between now and May.
Yeah, and if he does go off into the sunset summer with a title or a Champions League medal, it's a good sort of resolution probably for everyone, no 2 ways about it. And this is a thing of beauty, as I put it up on the screen there, people. Liverpool, literally a perfect record. I mean, 6 from 6, scored 13, only conceded 1, like you say, when Kostas Tsimikas has that brain fart against Pulisic early in the game, and since then they've been resolute. I mean, officially, if we look down, 9th place, just out that top 8, is on 12. So essentially it's done, barring the fact all these teams win 36-0, isn't it, really? It is done, automatic qualification, really.
Yeah, I think there was a simulation run, wasn't there, before the season started that said that in 98% of occasions that 16 points would get you through. So maybe we might get close to that kind of 2% where that doesn't happen, but I just don't think there's any chance. An 18 certainly is going to be enough. I think I'd be absolutely amazed. So I think, Liverpool, although not mathematically yet, we are essentially through already in the top 8, which is, to do that after 6 games and kind of compress that group stage into the 6 games that it used to be is an absolutely perfect situation to be in, really, and to be top is fantastic. I mean, one thing I will say is I'm a little bit skeptical now about the kind of huge value of finishing top versus finishing 8th. I honestly don't think it will matter that much because, we saw in the old format, you'd finish first sometimes and end up with a team that finished second who was Real Madrid in their group or whatever. And I mean, if you scroll down now, actually, you can see the teams who, if Liverpool finished top, they would play whoever's in the playoff positions right near the bottom, whoever's kind of top of those or whatever. And there's some absolutely big hitters down there. So, they've got to be kind of, it's just going to end up, you could end up with Manchester City after finishing first, basically. And to be honest, I think Liverpool would win that tie comfortably, but it's just something to think about in terms of, I just don't think finishing first is the be all and end all. And if you've got Ryan Gravenberch, say, has got a kind of, a little twinge in his muscle and you're concerned about it going into the Lille game, do not put him anywhere near it. There's no need. It's not that important. Your squad's strong enough anyway to bring an Endo in and do fine in a game like that. But also, just don't take any risks because you absolutely don't need to. Finishing top isn't imperative, although my guess is that Liverpool will end up doing that anyway, regardless of kind of what squad decisions they make, because I think they're just good enough to win these 2 games that are coming up anyway.
Yeah, you think so. It's interesting, the 2 that remain. Lille, who are maybe surprising people in the top 8 there as well, and PSV, who are quite near the bottom. Probably there's mixed news in terms of the rivals, because Arsenal, unfortunately, David, they look like they're going to get an automatic place, and we wanted them to have the 2 extra games. City, though, and I saw this today, this could be quite interesting. City, if they qualify, it's going to be in the 2-legged playoff system. They're definitely not going to go through automatically now. If City go through, they actually play their second leg midweek just before we go to the Etihad as well. I mean, we're being greedy here, super greedy, but you could have visions, couldn't you, of like City going 2 legs, extra time pens, and then we go to the Etihad. That's the dream, really, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just don't think there's anything to massively fear from facing Manchester City at the moment anyway. But as you say, you throw in a little bit of fatigue in the mix for a squad that's clearly hurting from the fact it's aged together. It certainly can't help. So I think there's almost a kind of bonus to City going through there, because I'm not don't want to sound arrogant, but I just don't see them as a massive threat this season. I think they've got too many problems to solve. Even if they make a couple of signings, I still think it's not going to turn things around for them completely. So, I just think from that perspective, it would just be handy for them to have that extra game. And on your point about Arsenal as well, by the way, I mean, they're not completely clear of it. There's some big sides kind of outside that top 8 who could win their next game. Arsenal have probably got a lot riding on these next 2 group stage games that they've got coming up. It's not sorted for them in the way that it kind of is for Liverpool. So, that's nice to keep them honest and keep them having intense and important games over this run. Whereas, as I said, for Liverpool, they've got the luxury of maybe a little bit of rotation. Not I don't expect he will make wholesale changes, but I think the odd change here and there can absolutely happen. So it's just worked out really nicely. And if Arsenal could do the honest thing and kind of drop down into those playoff places, that would be fantastic for Liverpool as well. But they might not do that, but it's still a lot of jeopardy coming up for them. So that's really helpful, I think.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And maybe we are being a bit greedy, but as it stands right now, it is all going absolutely brilliantly. So long may that continue. And this one, because we do talk about people, the off the field stuff. Joe Gomez, not a character that in a way we hear of from too often, quite known as a quiet, unassuming, but clearly very popular member of the team. I think it was interesting as you looked at his comments. I mean, he pretty much confirmed, didn't he, that, he was very, very close to leaving Liverpool. That Anthony Gordon swap deal was pretty much done before it had pulled the plug for various reasons. When we look at that now, we're bloody lucky we still got him, aren't we, really, David?
Yeah, I mean, this is it, because I think Liverpool, obviously, they definitely would have signed someone if he'd left and made sure they have cover in the positions that he does cover. But you never know what you're going to get. I know Liverpool are good at signing players, but nothing's guaranteed. And to have someone who comes in, knows everybody, he's settled in the squad. He's, as you say, really popular. Just a kind of really good person to have around the squad, but also that versatility and ability to come in straight away. And like you say, it's kind of he's come in this moment where Konate's out injured, and you put him back together the centre half partnership that won the league a few years ago. So that's a really nice position to be in. And so, it is a bit of good fortune for Liverpool that he'd stayed. And it's good to have that kind of level of depth that he provides. And I think one thing you could say is that when he does eventually leave, and it probably will be this summer, it's going to be hard to replace him, with someone who can cover as many positions, is as likable, is as good. I think it's very, very fortunate that he managed that Liverpool managed to keep hold of him.
Yeah, and it's interesting with Joe Gomez. I mean, I should have really known this when I said, because it's not really heard of in the modern era. But this summer, he will have completed a decade, 10 years at Liverpool, which is insane in the modern era, as it will. If he does depart, well worth a testimonial, surely.
Yeah, you'd like to think so. Yeah, it's mad how that's flown by, because I remember being there on the day that he signed in Chapel Street. I worked for the club then, and just met this kind of teenager who was just so, not confident in an arrogant way. He was such a really nice guy, but like kind of confident and sure of himself as just a person. And he didn't seem overawed by it. Really kind of cool and relaxed about the whole thing. And just thought he was a really nice character. And then obviously it became clear immediately as well that he was a very, very good footballer. And he's been an unbelievable servant down the years. And I think it would be fabulous as well if he could leave with one of the big 2 trophies this season. It would kind of cap off a successful 10 years and then go somewhere else where he will probably play more football and would go with everyone's best wishes as well. So that would be the kind of fairy tale ending for Joe Gomez if he could get his hand on one of the 2 big ones.
Yeah, definitely. And he has been brilliant this season whenever he's come on or wherever he's served the club. And Other news, we're hoping off the field, really, because we almost thought they'd be back. But I'm just going to play, if anyone's not seen it, a few clips. So here is Diogo Jota back in the building, getting a nice warm welcome from Andy Robbo. And the other one, look what Chiesa's been invited to, people.
Whenever you want, we'll go over dinner. I cook for you. I cook for you. I cook for you. I don't mind. I cook for you. Okay, so we gotta eat pasta then. Yes. When you want, give me a message.
Interesting. An invite that many would take up there. But more importantly, on the pitch, because I think everyone hoped both of them would go to Girona, wouldn't they? Maybe ahead of Fulham. But fingers crossed, touching wood. Are we expecting them back this weekend? Any absence, illness prevailing?
I don't know yet. I believe they were training apart from the group today,
Right.
which, and it's Thursday now. The game's on Saturday. Unless they're both involved on Friday, you'd say maybe not. It's a bit of a surprise, really, with Chiesa that he is training away from the group. I don't know whether the illness had kind of knocked him off his feet a little bit and he just needs to build himself back up a bit. But, I wouldn't kind of rule it out yet, but I'm just a little bit concerned they weren't training with the main group yet. And we do know that this kind of new look medical team that they've constructed, they do like to kind of take things slow, really. So, we'll have to see. I guess we'll get an update from the manager tomorrow, won't we? And see where they're up to. It'll be such a big boost just to get a couple of options back on the bench, because the bench looked terrible in Girona, to be quite honest with you. It's really lacking some of the, there's a lot of first teamers missing there. He's still without Alexis McAllister because of suspension, all the injuries they've got. So just to get a couple back would be fantastic, really. So I really hope they can be involved, but obviously not fully involved with training today, which kind of, makes me a little bit concerned they won't be back for Fulham.
Do you think, if it's not Fulham, surely Arne Slot, and surely both of those have got Southampton penciled in? Because that's kind of like, I'm not saying it's a free hit game, but in terms of importance, it's easily right down the bottom of the list. So if they're going to get match minutes, surely we're probably penciling those two in.
Yeah, and maybe that's the idea as well, is to just get them in, get them in shape for kind of to do 60 there, even to maybe even be surprise starters. We'll have to kind of see on that, but you want to get them back as soon as possible. And if not Fulham, I would say definitely Southampton. I'd be amazed if they both weren't involved there.
Yeah, fingers crossed for that one. And we know it's near January, people, so we've done naturally all the various ones. So the only new name that's coming on the docket, and I'm probably about to butcher this one, but I think it breaks down as Mastan Tuono, the young River Plate star. There's a lot of links with him to Liverpool, seem to be coming from various sources, but nothing really on the UK side at all, or the patch journo element, to be honest. Heard anything about the kid? Any links to Liverpool? Anything along those lines?
No, not at all, really. And it's not really a market that Liverpool have kind of dipped into that frequently, is it, over the years? And I just wonder with signings like this, whether the ideal situation for Liverpool would be to have a club to park them at. And they don't have that at the moment. Obviously, that's something that the FSG are kind of looking into, but I'm just skeptical that he would come in and challenge straight away, because I believe he's only a teenager. So it'd be a big ask. And I think, is he a central midfielder maybe? Again, if Liverpool are going to sign a midfielder, it would be someone who is in that kind of 23, 24 bracket, maybe slightly above that, because they need someone who's first team ready. So it's not something I've been given any encouragement on or kind of heard anything about. It might just be a case of their name being used to kind of get him moved to maybe Chelsea or somewhere like that.
Yeah, and maybe, surprisingly, for the first time in 5 shows, contract news or updates or rumours or a statement has not broken. So we're sure that'll be by next Monday, but we'll see, obviously, like you people, what that brings. So the only final thing, I suppose, for Liverpool specifically, Fulham. Now, this is a big game, naturally. Not one of sort of a major team in that sense, not trying to be derogatory to Fulham, but it's not one that people look out for. But it feels like all of a sudden, this is a huge game. Fulham are in good form. Are we expecting minimal rotation from what we've seen the other night against Girona?
Yeah, I wouldn't be hugely shocked if maybe Luis Diaz was to come into the number 9 role, to be honest, because Darwin is clearly so out of form at the moment, and that can't have escaped the manager. I was really surprised, to be honest, that he started in the Girona game, having played poorly at Newcastle, because he's so generally picks on form, doesn't he? And it kind of shocked me that he was still in for that. So I just don't think he's going to want to ignore that. And I think we will probably see Luis Diaz in that role, and then Gakpo gets to start. And I just don't think you can argue with that as probably Liverpool's strongest starting 11 with who they've got fit at the moment. So, for me, and then otherwise, I think, it does kind of pick itself in midfield with McAllister not being available. Back 4 picks itself as well. So, or the back 5 even. I think that's what he's going to go with.
Yeah, fingers crossed that'll be enough, because it is like you said, we've got players that we think are close and coming back, but aside from that first 11 and maybe like Nunez as it's looking quite sparse a little bit, especially that bench at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, there's just not a lot of possibility for rotation. I mean, you've got Gakpo and Diaz to kind of swap in and out as they have been doing, maybe Nunez and then you use a false 9 or whatever. But apart from that, really, the midfield's set because of the suspension there. He doesn't trust Morton, doesn't trust Endo outside the League Cup games. And then the back 5, obviously Alisson is back in now, but he's not going to rotate his goalkeeper. And then what's in front? No Conor Bradley for right back, no Kostas Tsimikas for left back, centre halves, no Canate. So it's just in a situation where it kind of picks itself, which kind of makes it difficult for the games where you might want to rotate coming up. You're kind of like, well, what's he actually going to do there? So that's tricky, but I suppose it makes the manager's job easier in terms of picking the team.
Yeah, that is one thing, and fingers crossed it will be enough at the weekend. We always finish, as we do, with wider football. Now, a little bit different because it is wider football this one, David, but it does come back ultimately to the Reds. And I know we talked last time about our Chelsea title contenders. Virgil seems to think so. So I know this is from Lewis Steele and the quotes that he had from the Daily Mail. Was Virgil said, I don't think Chelsea are under the radar, obviously with the squad they have. The players that can come off the bench, we can talk about inexperience maybe, but they have the quality, they have the players to make it difficult for any team. I suppose a bit of a different question with that. Think Virgil believes that fully, or trying to stick some pressure on Chelsea now they're right there?
Yeah, I think he's just being respectful, to be honest. I reckon behind closed doors, he'd possibly agree with me in terms of, obviously, I don't think they're in the title race. I think they concede too much expected goals, and that will eventually turn into conceding goals. They already concede at a higher rate than Liverpool, or nowhere near that. So, I struggle to see them making it really. And one of the factors as well is, as he kind of alludes to there, is that experience isn't quite there either. It's a very, very young squad. So, I think they'll have a little wobble coming up now. They've had a good run of results, but there will be some kind of shock results in there, because I've seen people listing the games they've got coming up and they should be straightforward. But, the Premier League isn't like that. And there will be some games where they get shocked. So, I really don't think they're anywhere near it, to be honest. And I think Virgil's maybe just being polite.
And they have got about 67,000 miles or something to travel back tonight. So, we'll see how Chelsea get on. And the only final one I wanted to ask, because we always ask, as we do for us, about transfers, everything building. Literally, I mean, we look at the table now, we can pretty much rule Manchester City out, barring a collapse of everyone. You probably look at Arsenal, maybe Chelsea as the main potential rivals. They'll probably be looking to do business in January, just because Arsenal and Chelsea always do look to do business, even if they do sign 67 players. It's just in their nature. Is there any player that you think's realistic or type of sign make where you'd think, actually, that's closed the gap, or that could be something for us just to keep an eye on?
I mean, Chelsea could maybe sign a goalkeeper and that would clearly improve them. But again, I still think those question marks about structurally, it's not just all on him that they concede goals, they concede chances. So, I think that would improve them, because I think the goalkeeper's not very good. But, I don't think there's a single signing they could make that would absolutely have me quaking in my boots. As for Arsenal, I think they've got a little bit of a problem in terms of goal scoring at the moment. And so if they signed a forward who was a genuine goal scoring quality, maybe someone who could play instead of Martinelli, who's just not hit the heights of a couple of seasons ago since, if they had someone with pace on that side who could score goals, then maybe that would kind of make you sit up and take notice. But the big thing for them is that you kind of can't let the gap get any bigger to Liverpool, in the meantime. So, even if they made a really good signing, they'd have to be closer than I know it's 6 points for the game in hand now, but, maybe 9 points. So it could be 9 points. They have to be a lot closer than that for it to probably have any impact. So, I'm not too concerned about that, really. And I'm still kind of optimistic and hopeful that Liverpool dip into the market and do something. Still, it's so obvious to me that central midfield area could just do with another high-quality body in there as an option. But we'll have to see whether they think that that's available.
It did kind of come up in our Discord quite a bit. A few people were commenting on it this morning. I suppose in terms of what we're looking to do ultimately, because the right one to finish on, we'd love a midfield signing. There seems to be I don't know if fear is the right way, but a worry amongst quite a few that it would be, if we do the contracts, that'll be us. That'll be like presented as, we've done the contracts, so that's a good thing. Could you understand why fans might be a little bit like, no, we could have done this earlier and a midfielder would really be the key for January?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be sold as that. Someone might, some reporter may say that, but there's just no way that Liverpool think in that way. They can absolutely do the contracts and the signing. You could not tell me now if Zubimendi turned around and said he wanted to come immediately, that they wouldn't do that deal just because, we're doing the contracts. It's just nonsense. And I know people want that stuff. They almost want that stuff to be said so that they can kind of be annoyed about it. But it won't be true at all. Even if someone does say it, just disregard that. It isn't true at all. Liverpool could do a signing and the contracts, and they don't think otherwise at all. But the key aspect, and this is why, we can praise Liverpool to high heaven for always being good at signing players, and they generally are. But the reason is because they're very, very picky. So if they don't sign a central midfielder in January, it's not because they're being difficult or they're trying to be funny or clever. It's because they don't think that the midfielders that are available to them, and Zubimendi may not be available, and there may not be someone who does what he does until the summer or whatever. It will be the case that they can't get someone who they think is good enough. And I'd rather them have that mindset than sign some of the names who've been thrown at me in recent years. I think everyone going on about Florentino Luis or everyone going on about Ibrahim Sangare, who since have kind of proven they wouldn't have moved the dial for Liverpool at all. I only want Liverpool to sign someone if they genuinely do move the dial. And I've heard so much chat this week about kind of, that the manager must be backed in the window. But he doesn't want players who aren't good enough. He doesn't want them to go out and sign someone just to be a body. If he wants a body in central midfield, he's got Endo. He's a body. He's someone who's relatively competent at what he does. And he's praised him to high heaven for his professionalism and his attitude. And, even if he's not the perfect fit, he definitely thinks he's, you can use him here and there or whatever. So it's not going to be a case, if they don't sign him, it won't be the manager being let down. He will completely buy into this way of working, which is we only sign players when we're absolutely convinced that they make a difference. And they don't always get that right, by the way, but they put a lot of work into making sure that they can get it as right as possible. So, it won't be him being let down. It won't be a lack of funds. It won't be anything like that. If you don't sign someone, it's because the manager and the sporting director agree that the available options there are not ones who will absolutely make a long-term difference to Liverpool. So I just kind of want to state that now, because I don't like sometimes the way that transfers are viewed and spoken about, because I just think it's so detached from the reality that if the recruitment staff sat people down and spoke to them, they'd be kind of amazed by how they actually think about these things. And it's so different to how we do from the outside. So, I understand sometimes the argument of, a signing gives you a boost. But for me, that's kind of you get Luis Diaz and he's an attacker and he adds you that extra impetus in attack. For me, the midfielder, I just want the right one. I don't want someone brought in for the sake of it, because I don't think it will help Liverpool. So that's kind of how I view these things. And as I say, the money's there. If the will is there to do it from all parties, then they will sign someone. But otherwise, it's not, it's not the manager being let down or anything like that. I don't buy into that idea at all. And Arne Slot will not buy into that either.
Yeah, difficult to say what will happen in January. We'll see if we're talking mountains. We'll see if we're talking PowerPoints in the next few months. It will be interesting to see. But what, ladies and gents, in a good way, despite Arne Slot's unhappiness the other night, the Reds are top of everything and Fulham beckons on Saturday. So all it leaves me to say as ever is, David, for the time, for the insight, everything along those lines, it is much appreciated.
No, thank you.
And ladies and gents, that was another Media Matters for Anfield Index.